Chapter 6. Choice is real. And that is exactly why it is inevitable. When one reaches the conclusion that the will is not chosen, an attempt at rescue almost always appears. Something like, all right, maybe I did not choose what I want, but I still choose. This reaction is understandable. It preserves one last feeling of control. The problem is that it does not sustain what it promises to sustain. There is a recurring confusion that needs to be undone with care. Many people understand inevitability as a denial of reality, as if something were only real if it could have happened differently. But that is not true. There are countless real things that could not have been different. The heart beats, fire burns, a stone falls when released. None of that could occur otherwise unless something fundamental changed, and yet we do not say these things are illusions. Something similar happens with choice. It happens. It is lived. It produces effects. It marks trajectories. But it happens in accordance with what we are and with the conditions present in that specific moment. When someone chooses, they are not hovering above themselves, evaluating options from a neutral and sovereign place. They are immersed in their own body, their own history, their own emotional state, their own degree of maturity. We never choose from zero. There is always something that weighs more, something that matters more, something that speaks louder within. And this does not occur by a magical gesture of freedom, but because we are exactly like that in that instant. Many insist, but I felt I could choose anything. That feeling is real, but its interpretation is usually mistaken. Feeling openness does not mean that any outcome was possible. It only means that the inner process had not yet been resolved. While inner forces remain balanced, we experience doubt. When one of them prevails, the choice happens. Confusing this experience with absolute freedom is like imagining that a pendulum is free from the laws of physics simply because it swings before coming to rest. It is precisely here that the greatest discomfort arises. Choice is inevitable because it faithfully expresses who we are. It reveals our real values, our real fears, our real priorities, our real degree of consciousness in that moment. It is far more comfortable to believe we could have chosen anything, because that preserves an idealized image of ourselves. The inevitability of choice destroys that fantasy. It shows that we do not choose the best possible in the abstract, but what is possible given who we were in that instant. This observation also dismantles a very common form of moral judgment. The belief that we always could have chosen differently sustains unfair demands, which require from the other a version of themselves that was never available. To say, you should have chosen differently, only makes sense if something inside that person had already been different. Otherwise, it is not justice, but projection. Regret is often invoked as proof of freedom, but it proves only change. After the choice, we learn something, we suffer consequences, we mature. The me of now looks back and projects its new consciousness onto someone who did not yet possess it. That creates the illusion that the earlier choice was free in the absolute sense. It was not. It was exactly what it could be in that moment. Recognizing the inevitability of choice does not eliminate responsibility. It eliminates only an illusory responsibility, based on possibilities that never existed. We answer for choices not because we could have been someone else, but because the choice expresses what we were in that instant, and its consequences participate in transforming what we will be afterward. Responsibility is not punishment for the impossible. It is learning from the real. When we abandon the idea of choice as something almost miraculous, something curious happens. It becomes understandable. Choice stops being an obscure, inexplicable point and becomes understood as a natural mechanism of consciousness, the manifestation of preferences under certain conditions. This does not impoverish the human being. On the contrary, it makes the human being intelligible. Accepting this requires abandoning one last, dearly held illusion, that we could have been radically different without anything in us being different. But once that illusion is abandoned, something more honest takes its place. The real possibility of change, not through guilt or condemnation, but through transformation of the conditions that constitute us. Choice is real. What is illusory is the idea that it could have happened differently if everything in us had been exactly the same.